Can we influence our DNA with our thoughts? Can stress shorten the ends of our chromosomes, while meditation can lengthen them? How does the psyche affect the epigenetic code? We will try to answer these and similar questions in today's episode of the series Secrets of Genes, in which I welcome you. My name is Edward Kejnovsky, and I work as a geneticist at the Institute of Biophysics of the Czech Academy of Sciences. When Gregor Mendel discovered and described the laws of inheritance, he knew nothing about the carrier of genetic information, the DNA molecule. With today's knowledge of genetics, it is clear that everything is much, much more complex. For example, we know that most traits are determined by multiple genes, and that besides the information encoded in the sequence of DNA nucleotides, there is another code, an epigenetic one, which I have already mentioned earlier. This involves chemical marks attached to the DNA or to the proteins that wrap around the DNA, the so-called histones. The role of epigenetic marks is to regulate gene activity. In 2009, the American biologist of Australian origin, Elizabeth Blackburn, was awarded the Nobel Prize for her discoveries concerning telomeres, the end parts of chromosomes. Among other things, she found that telomeres shorten in proportion to human aging. She later discovered that the shortening of telomeres also reflects our state of health and even depends on our mental state. Sleep, breathing, our diet, and similar factors also have an influence. Chronic inflammation and stress also have a negative effect on telomere length. On the other hand, activities like meditation have a positive effect. With the discovery of telomerase, the enzyme that actually lengthens telomeres, it seemed as if the elixir of eternal youth had been found. It appeared that it would be enough to simply supply telomerase, for example, in pills or injections. Unfortunately, it turned out to be dangerous because increased levels of telomerase in the wrong cell and at the wrong time can lead to uncontrolled cell growth. It was found that a large proportion of cancer cells have increased activity of this very enzyme. Further research has shown that certain hormones are released into the body during meditation and relaxation, such as estrogen and oxytocin, while others are released during stress, for example cortisol, and this affects a number of processes, including influencing the activity of telomerase, which subsequently regulates the length of telomeres. Estrogen is apparently the reason why adult women have longer telomeres compared to men, even though their length is the same for both sexes at birth. What is the reason that we can influence our DNA through stress, or, on the contrary, through meditation and cuddling, either negatively or positively? The psyche and external environmental factors actually significantly influence and affect the epigenetic setting of DNA, and thus also affect gene expression. A well-known experiment, for example, demonstrated that licking and cuddling by a mouse mother with her pups influences the pups' epigenome, specifically their DNA methylation, and subsequently their health and behavior. Similarly, it has been proven that the famine in the Netherlands at the end of World War II caused health problems such as diabetes, obesity, and other diseases in people only in the second generation, that is, at a time when the Netherlands was already a wealthy country. Similar epigenetic changes, specifically changes in DNA methylation, have been observed in people who survived the Holocaust. The fact that epigenetic marks are transmitted transgenerationally is also demonstrated by experiments with mice that were exposed to the scent of acetophenone, and the experimenters paired this olfactory stimulus with an electric shock. They developed a reflex. At the mere presence of acetophenone, they became frightened and cowered in the corner. But the most interesting fact is that this memory was also passed on to the granddaughters of the tested mice who had never encountered these stressors themselves. They inherited the fear. Their genome remained unchanged, only the epigenome was altered. Epigenetic phenomena usually affect only somatic cells, but as it turned out, sometimes they can also alter eggs and sperm and thus be passed on to the next generation. The sites of the most common epigenetic marks are also the sites of frequent mutations at the DNA level. This means that the step from epigenetic changes to genetic changes is not a big one. Epigenetic changes simply respond more flexibly to external and internal environmental changes, and unlike DNA mutations, they are much more reversible. DNA conformation works in a similar way. In DNA motifs that form unusual conformations, such as quadruplex or triplex DNA, mutations occur more frequently. And because these unusual DNA conformations respond very sensitively and reversibly to environmental conditions, such as pH or various ions, DNA conformations provide another example of a mechanism by which the environment can change the sequence of letters in DNA. That's all for today. In today's episode, I pointed out several recent studies that clearly show our thinking, behavior, and psyche can influence our epigenetic code and perhaps even directly our DNA. We'll continue with this topic in the next episode. I'm looking forward to seeing you. If you enjoy my stories, I would appreciate a like and a subscription to my channel. I really value your support. Thank you, and bye bye.